It's very hard to change people's understanding of the past because we're locked into our own world, our own understanding, our own prejudices really about what the ancestors were capable of. We seem to think that because we're tied to the land that they didn't have huge abilities to move on the ocean enormous distances. And to understand where they came from, we need to perhaps look at Waitaha, because the way they voyaged was quite exceptional, not just in the distances, but the way they went about it. So it's the going about it bit that we really need to focus on. You see, those who went on the Great Waka, those who headed out from Easter Island exploring for 200 years to chart the ocean currents and the star patterns that they might go somewhere and then get back again and be able to return to that place. They were the water people. They were born to this. The oceans were their life. They were selected as children because of the aura that they carried. They were selected because of the stars they were born under and where the moon was at that time. They were selected because in their young years they found excitement in the ocean, had no fear of it, were drawn to the waves. They were water people. Rapuwai is their name. So when they went on a huge voyage with the great double-hulled waka, and of course if we focus on Easter Island because that's where everyone gathered, that's where they came from, the peoples who came from Africa and Asia and the Caucasians who came out of the Mediterranean, those who came from the Americas, they gathered at Easter Island. When they went on the great voyages, they took no food, they took no water. If we saw a painting of one of these vessels heading forth that was done by a European who was reconstructing it, they'd have the waka filled with coconuts, they'd have heaps of food, they'd have dried fish, they'd have everything for the voyage. But that wasn't their way. When they left that shore, they placed their lives totally in the hands of Tongaroa, God of the waters. Everything was placed in his hands. They trusted in the ocean. They trusted that they would be able to get water through the rains. They would collect it off the sails into gourds. They knew that they could get fish because the ocean was full of fish. And to get the fish, all they had to take with them were live mussels, which they trailed beside the waka. Mussels that were attached to ropes that they had placed in the mussel bed so that the spat would attach to them during that season. And then they were quietly towed from the platform that bound the waka, the two hulls as one. And when they wanted fish, they took a few of these mussels and they smashed them and put them in a little kete, and the fish came in and they netted them. Simple as that. And if the water didn't come, well, you took the fish and you cut it, you sliced it in very, very fine slices, and you dipped it in the ocean water. And you ate it. And you survived. You didn't drink the ocean water. You survived on the juices of the fish and a little of the ocean water. That's how they sailed day by day. 13 nights voyaging to get from Easter Island to New Zealand in the voyage of the Rakahotu. In his song, 13 nights. So that's how they swept across the oceans. It's our lack of understanding of how these peoples were so at home in the ocean and our lack of ability to be like that. I mean, how many European sailors have died, abandoned in life rafts and all that kind of thing, who've even caught fish but died through lack of water because they didn't know how to use it. So these things had been handed down through time. They were sea nomads, they were of the ocean, they were born to that. So huge voyages were made by many peoples, but they were ocean peoples. The ocean was not a forbidding barrier. It wasn't an obstacle to be overcome. It was a road to be travelled by everyone of their ilk. They were born to it. And to die in the ocean, to go down with your waka in a huge storm, was the best death of all for those people. They went to the arms of Tongaroa. So if we write the history books again, if we write them in a way that truly understands these peoples, we'll allow them their voyaging. We'll step back from our prejudices and say, hey, they were able to do it. And not just in ancient times. Because I have a little story about someone called Grey Wolf, and Grey Wolf was only perhaps 12 when his grandfather came to him up in the South Alaskan Islands. He was of the Inuit people, and he said, we're going to build a big kayak. We're going to build an ocean-going kayak for you and I. And they took a year or two to build it. It was perfect. And then he said, we're going to make a big voyage. And he was a shaman. He was a man of power, understood the mysteries of the weather and of the stars and the voyaging. And they headed off from the South Alaskan Islands, and 3 years later, in 1938, they arrived in the Hokianga in New Zealand. It's been reported in the papers. And then after celebrations there and being embraced by the Maori people, they turned around and went home. They knew how to travel the ocean. The grandfather of Grey Wolf, he knew. They did it in the old way, in a little kayak. And they arrived where he intended they should arrive. It wasn't by chance they came to the Hokianga in New Zealand. He came to visit the Maori people. So they gathered in the Pacific, these peoples. They made amazing voyages over that huge expanse of ocean. And eventually they came here from so many parts of the planet because they were the great voyagers, the star walkers, the water people. And maybe one day we'll write them into the books in a true way and honour their voyages and this ancient history that still defines its place in the world today.